Okay, I think my mic is on this time when we start, which means I won't be talking and no one can hear me. So we're coming on a little early. We're going to test out the cameras. I can take any questions you guys want. And remember, okay, I'm Judelle. And I'm actually only going to be here for a little bit today because Judy is going to take over most of it, and Janie's going to help with the video. Maverick, most of you probably know the dog because he's been in and out of some videos. He had a surgery last week, and he's not allowed to be up and running around and doing all the things that dogs do. So I'm going to go hang out with him in the other room and watch the video, and I'll be answering questions. And Janie's going to do the video. So anyway, hello everybody.
So, just so you know, when you walk out, just shut the door.
And I hope you all had a, let's see, when was the last time we were here? 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago already? Holy cow, time goes fast. Yeah, I hope you all had a good last 2 weeks and made progress on your quilts. Let's see if this is new and you guys haven't been here before. I'm Judy Niemeyer and I'm from Quiltworx, and Quiltworx is a fabric or a pattern company owned by Judy Niemeyer, and she is teaching everybody right now how to make that quilt on the wall behind me. It's called Pocket Full of Posies, and we're on class 3, but all of the classes have been recorded. The easiest place to find them is to go to our YouTube channel. Let's see, effect. If I go, I'll show you here. Let's go here. Hold on just 1 second, and then I'll switch the videos here once I get us on the right page. Okay, so here is YouTube, and here is our YouTube channel, which you can find just by searching for Quiltworx on YouTube. And you can see right now I'm live on YouTube here, class 3 for Pocket Full of Posies. So that's the live stream if you're following along on YouTube. Hello. And then if you click on playlists, you can come in here and see this Pocket Full of Posies. This is a running list of all of the videos associated with this class. Everything from, let's see, I'm gonna mute that. The pre-class workshop, our first workshop, then we have so far a number of videos on prep for the applique, and then last week's workshop, or 2 weeks ago, workshop number 2, and we'll just keep adding to this, and you can come back and watch any of those videos at any time that you want. So let's see.
I do have a question. So it's some.
Do you have this on? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Can we set that camera up and take it off of the iron? Because we won't be doing a lot of ironing that they need be.
Yes, we're gonna move a camera here. So, let's see. I see 21 viewers. I see 4 reactions. I see a bunch of shares. Oh, I see a comment. Hi, Jane. Good morning from, Peachland. It's my favorite name. Every time you post it, I say that. Okay, I'm going to switch this camera. Let's see. Hold on. I'm giving you guys an infinite loop here. Let's switch back to the main video here. And then... two. Oh, let's go.
I have a wood.
Okay, it's on that instead of the iron. So,
and I do have a wood thing in case I do need to iron. Let me go grab that.
If you decide, well, she could also Might have to just rotate the camera. Yeah, she wants to be able to point at that wall over there. So anyway, I'm gonna switch back to me now. Okay, everyone, you probably heard us talking in the background, but that's all right. That's why we do these little come on a little early so that we know for sure that we're, our cameras all work and look good, and we have all of the locations set up. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna switch it over to, I'm gonna let Janie sit here. And then you can just, you're gonna be on video, but you can say hi. And then you can just switch the view to whatever view you want. Okay. And then how much time do we have left? Like 5 minutes. What can we show them in 5 minutes, Mom?
Well, we could show them those quilts from Hoffman. Those are
they're not all Hoffman, but we could definitely show
that one.
So this quilt was hanging at Quilt Market this fall. It was made by one of our CIs, Kristen Bender, out of a new collection that's coming from Hoffman. And it's called Jellyfish, I believe. Anyway, the quilt pattern itself is called Mermaid's Tail. And so we took McKenna Ryan's batik collection from Hoffman called Jellyfish. And we did a quilt out of it. So Hoffman's going to be kitting this. The collection doesn't actually come out, I think, until April or May or something like that. But we have some projects. One of our box projects is going to be done out of this group. And then they're going to be doing kits. So you'll probably see some kits for this fun little project all over. And you can't see the whole thing, but anyway, you get the idea. And then this one, let's show this one. This one's really fun. So this one is coming also in the May time frame. And it's a tree skirt, and it was made by one of our certified instructors, Judy Madison, and it's called Christmas Cookie. So it's round like a cookie, and it looks like a cookie, and I want to decorate some cookies just like this because I think it's so cute. And anyway, look at these cute little reindeer and snowflakes. So this is out of one of their new fabric collections. I don't know. I can't remember. It's an Island Batik collection, and I can't remember what it is, but it's one of their new Christmas collections coming out this spring. So you will start seeing patterns and kits and everything for this project as well, which is just really, really cute. Oh, we could show geodes. I don't think we showed that one yet. And if we did, I guess we could show it again, but I really don't think we showed this. So in addition to the Pocket Full of Posies, we have some other classes coming up on YouTube workshops. So, and this is another one that's coming, and it's called Geodes. So Geodes, this quilt, the cover quilt was done out of Tula Pink fabrics, and it's got her tiny dots and stripes featured, and then her fairy flakes in black and white to accent those.
Do you remember who quilted it?
Angela McCorkle quilted it. Quilts from the Heart, I think, is what her company's named. Anyway, she's in Texas, and she did just a amazing job on this. So I love this quilt. I don't know if we get closer. Oh yeah, see some of those quilting designs? Anyway, yeah, you can actually see that pretty good.
And I made the backing.
The backing. We put panda bears on the back.
And I matched them.
See?
See? They're all fussy cut, so you can't tell where I pieced it. I'm pretty proud of those little panda bear faces.
Anyway, that's called geodes, and those classes are starting in February. So if you like this format and you want to try a simpler and faster quilt, but it uses actually some of the same techniques as the one that we're doing this time, the Pocket Full of Posies, that could be a good option.
Is this Island Batik?
That's Island Batik too. Okay, we're going to show you one more. So this is also Island Batik, and although you're not going to be able to see the whole quilt in the video, it's called Fortune Teller, and this one's actually been out for a while. We just saw this collection, and I don't know, I'm going to come up closer, see this fabric here. I loved that fabric and thought that it would be a great, it's in the border too, you can see it's got lots of rainbow colors in it. I thought that would be a great option for this quilt. The collection just seemed to fit it. So we did another updated colorway in this one, and you should start seeing kits coming out for this one soon as well. It was made by one of our CIs also, Kristen Binder. Actually, she's the same one who made the mermaid's tail that we showed you also. So, all right, so I think we're probably ready to start now. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna take off and we can switch over to Judy.
Can you guys see me? It looks like you can. Okay, so today, what's on our agenda, if you look at, let's see, Janie will have to show you the wall from this other camera. We have a lot of stuff on, okay, so yeah. So this other wall here, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you guys how to do the curved piecing, and then there's a curved piece unit that goes on there. So that's the first part of our video, and then we're going to teach you how to sew around a square to complete this block, and how to make sure you have your pieces all assembled properly. And then after that, we're going to do some, I think the next thing we're doing is we're going to show you how to do the applique, and I have my light table today to show you how I lay everything out on the light table, and we're going to show you how to put the pieces on. Notice that I have all of my papers and I sorted all of the applique pieces to go with the blocks that they're supposed to go to, and then we'll just pull the pieces out of those bags and put them on the table. So I'm going to show you that today, and then we're going to show you how to put and build the sashing strips. That's a template layout sheet. And then if we have time, I'm going to jump ahead and we're going to show you how to sort the queen fabric and template pieces, and kind of talk to you a little bit about that. If we run out of time because the applique takes too long, then what I'm going to do is Janie and I will do a short video tomorrow or the next day, whatever day she's here, and we'll post that out so that you guys can be prepared for the next workshop. Okay, so that's kind of what our agenda is today. So we're basically, what we want to do is find, which page? We assembled all of the D and E groups in the last video. So what we're going to do is go through the curved piecing, which puts us into the assembly group. So let me turn pages here just a little bit and see where we're at with it. It looks like we're actually going to start on page 12 today. And we've already done some of the assembly on page 12, but we're going to finish up this part and show you some tricks for that. And oh, I need to go grab one thing. Give me just 2 seconds. Janie, talk to them. My very first video, part to the video, is right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of go over these pieces, and then underneath there is all the groupings that we're going to assemble that are on the wall, okay? So I'm going to just set this book aside, and we're going to start talking. So what I did is I ran in there and I have this glue, and it's from Acorn, and it's called Precision Piecing product. And I was playing with it the other day on these pieces, and I really liked the results that I had. So if you look, I'm using like a cotton fabric here that is fraying a lot on me, okay? And so when I go to do the curved piecing like this, all of these pieces are poking out and causing issues. And so what I did is I took these pieces, and here's one that I haven't done yet, and I'm going to cut these threads off right here. And then the other thing we want to do is look at this where your seams are on the back. And if any of them overlap, like this one does right here, I'm going to actually come in here with my curved scissors, and I'm just going to snip that back a little bit so that it doesn't lay over one of the other seams. And so it decreases the bulk in that curve. I have the same issue with this one. So I'm going to clean that one off just a little bit. And all it takes is just a corner off of those pieces. And this one is going to do the same thing. It looks like I tried to glue that one already. So, and the reason I like my curved scissors is it just kind of rolls that seam for me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this product, and I'm going to have to unplug it here. There we go. And this glue is a little bit different glue than what the glue base stick that I use to apply the applique. This actually works really well when you're working with seams. It's a lot softer, where the glue base stick that I use for applique, and that's an Aleene's product. I think it's Roxanne's. It has a tendency to dry really hard, and so if you start trying to sew through it, sometimes it'll break your needles. This is a little bit softer glue, and it's a heat set glue. So what I'm going to do is fold back those seams, and I'm going to put just a touch of glue underneath so that that seam holds down. And I'm going to put glue under every one of the seams right there. Okay, so now I have all of those seams tied down, and I'm going to hit that with an iron, and I'm going to set that glue. So we're going to take our iron for a minute, and all I do is just set it on there. It doesn't take long. Just make sure it gets hot. Okay, that should do it. So when I get ready to sew that on, I don't have to worry about all those seams fraying on me. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add this piece on to here. And you'll notice that I showed you guys how to sew through there. I'm going to pull the threads out, and just to review again, if you need to mark it, just pull these back and mark along the stitched TRP line, and with a light pencil or a marking pencil if you have it. If you're working with a batik, you probably don't even have to mark it, because you're going to be able to see the holes that are left in there from pulling the threads out. And when you're sewing these TRP lines, it really is a good idea to go just a little bit bigger on your stitch. I always forget to do that, to adjust my stitch length, so it's a little bit harder to pull them out. But the threads are, there we go. That was the last one. So now, remember that the paper is the front side of your fabric. So if you're working with a batik, you have to, once you remove the paper, that's the top. And one of the things I do to make sure I don't mix it up is, before I pull the paper off, I will actually come in here and take my chalk pencil or a chalk pencil and just mark the back side of the batik, and then I'll know that that's the wrong side of the fabric. These fabrics have a right and a wrong side, so I don't have to worry about that. So we're going to pull that off, and now we're going to take this, and I have TRP lines. I have a TRP line marked here. You won't be able to see it. And so the first mark that I have here for my TRP line, so this one and this one match up. And then this is my seam line. The next one matches up to that seam line. So when I flip this over like this, the first thing I'm going to do is lay the first TRP line right into that seam. And I'm going to put a pin in there. And then I'm going to roll the second one and match it up to the TRP line underneath it and pin that. And I like to go through and do this on all of my pieces at the same time. So we're going to do that again, just so you guys get an idea that it really does go a lot faster if you do multiple pieces at the same time. Okay. And then we're going to take this one, and this is my square. These template pieces, some of them say Unit E, and some of them say Unit D, the T templates. Both of them are exactly the same size. So if you just stack them all, don't worry about the letters on there, because they are the same size. And then we're going to take the next one and match it in right on there. And we have one more that we're going to do. These are my last 4 that I have to complete. Okay, so all of my pieces are glued in or pinned in place, so I can get rid of that template. And now what we're going to do is grab our glue pin. Actually, I think I'm going to use this one, because I might not lose it. So I'm going to actually take and put my glue right along the edge there, and I want to come down and right around that corner, and then I'm going to match the corner up with that smart corner. So that piece, that curve actually comes down to the corner, and then it goes straight. And then we're going to come over to this one, and you're going to have to find where it does the same thing. So if you have a line on your board, because it's kind of hard to see exactly where that's at. If I put this on the line, I can tell right there is when the curve starts rolling away from that straight line. So that's where my corner is. And so I'm just going to put glue on that. And then I'm going to take the corner right there, that point, and match that up. And then we'll just push the glue, those pieces together. And then we're going to glue in between the two pins. Now at this point, I'm going to move those pins, because if I have any lumps in there, ruffles, then I can actually come in here with my fingers and just kind of pull the fabric with my fingers and get all of the little puckers and ruffles out of it. So we have one of them done. I'm going to do one more of these, just so you can see how these go together again. So the first thing we want to do is find the corner on this end, and then we're going to match the smart corners right along there and push that glue into each other. And then we're going to find where the corner, where that rolls away, and I'm going to put my glue along this edge. And then I'm going to find the corner point on my light fabric and match it up right on that corner. Okay, and then I'm going to pull the pins out, and we're going to glue the inside down. Now normally I probably wouldn't even, other than gluing my ends and stuff, I probably wouldn't even pin this, but because of the way these smart corners come together, it's a really good idea to make sure you have that secure. And I'm off just a touch there, so we're going to realign that. Okay, so I'm going to take these two pieces and we're going to go to my machine and we're going to sew the curved seam. And I use what I call a starter fabric, and it's not a starter fabric. Instead of fabric, I actually just use little chunks of paper. So I'm going to grab some paper out of my garbage here from earlier, and I'm just going to cut some little scraps. Make sure that the scraps that you're cutting don't have any repositionable glue on them, because if they do, then the paper will just stick to the machine. Before I start sewing, I'm going to check my pressure foot and make sure that I don't have repositionable glue on the back of it, and it looks pretty clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to just start sewing on my paper. And I want to adjust my stitch length to, I'm going to go down to about a 2 on this machine, because I like to do a smaller stitch when I'm doing my curved piecing. I want my needle down so that it always stops down, because if I have to adjust anything, I want to be able to lift my pressure foot. And now I'm going to just take this and put this piece of fabric and line that point right up with my needle. And what's cool is this paper will actually pull that right underneath the pressure foot, and the needle will just start sewing, and you don't end up with the issue where when your needle goes down, it pushes the points down into the feed dogs down there. So it just sews right over that point, and I'm going to line it up, and we're going to do a 1/4 of an inch seam. If you feel like you're going to get a little pucker, all you have to do is just lift your pressure foot and then just pull back on the fabric, and it'll actually straighten your fabric and flatten it right in front of your pressure foot. by about 1 inch. So if you feel like you're going to get any kind of a pucker there, you can definitely straighten that out by just pulling back on that fabric. And sometimes you have to lift that pressure foot to do it. Okay, so once I get to this other end, I'm going to have an issue with my pressure foot's going to want to move that fabric, and so I take a little piece of paper and I just slide it back underneath that point, and I'm going to take it like that. And now I can control where that's going to land, and I want to land right on the point of my smart corner on this one. So I'm going to pull it back just a tad, and I can hold on to that paper and make sure it sews right off that point. So I'm going to sew a little bit further, and then I can pick up the next one and still use the same paper in between. And we're going to line that up. And before I get to the end, I put another piece of paper underneath there, and then I can control where that's going to go, and I can sew right off that point. All right, so when I do curved piecing, I like to get all of my pieces ready, and then I'll just chain piece the whole group through the machine. And then I come back and we're going to clip it apart. So we're going to just take this paper, and all we have to do is just tear it off right there. And if you look at the back, you're going to see that that seam comes right down and it tapers right off along that edge. You don't stop at 1/4 inch, it tapers right off onto that point. So that when I open this up, that's a straight line right there. So then we're going to take this one, and I'm going to cut that thread right there. Pull the paper off. It's ready. Cut the threads. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the iron, but one of the things that happens when you have these smart corners that are on a curve is it's really hard to get that to press open. So what I like to do is just take my glue pen here, and I'm just going to take and put a little tiny glue right along that seam at both ends of the smart corner. And then I'm going to push that over so that I end up with a nice straight line along there. And then this is going to get pushed over. And now I have my nice straight line going here. Then I can go back to the iron and we'll press that. So we're going to do that again here. And it doesn't take much glue on those. I got a little bit too much on this one, but now I have a straight edge and a straight edge. So I really like using the glue on the ends there. So now we're going to take our starch pen. I really like using when I'm doing the curves, because if I don't, I have a tendency to overstretch them. So I'm just going to run that right along that curve. That opens that seam up. And then I don't have to push on it with my iron and stretch it out of shape. So now we're just going to take these and we're just going to place the iron on it and lay it down. It lays down nice and straight for us. And there was no pushing on the seams to stop that, to get that to lay down and press down flat. Okay, so I have those two pieces done, and I'm not sure, I think I have to come in here and clean this one up. So I'm going to clip this back one, because I picked the one that I didn't do to demo on. So what I'm doing is clipping these overlapping seams first, and then we're going to put some glue underneath those. And this seam is a little bit folded back, so I'm just going to put a little bit more glue on it and get that to lay down. Anyway, I really like that product, that glue for this, because it's not messy. So okay, so now we're going to take this, and I'm going to find the center on both pieces of this, and then I'm going to find the center on that. We did not put TRP lines on these pieces because it's one of those, it's kind of an old technique where you just fold it in half and you know where it's at, and now you don't have to pick out the TRP lines. Notice that I still have the paper. I don't have it underneath where I'm sewing on the vein, but I'm keeping the paper on the rest of it because it keeps it stiff as I come around here. So we're going to take both of these pieces, and I can just crease this with my fingernail and find exactly where my center is on those veins. And then on this piece, I'm actually going to, what I like to do is just take these, and if I have a whole stack of them, I'll actually come over and just fold them all like that and press the whole stack, but I press them with wrong sides together. All right. So now all I have to do is just lay the center of that right there on that inside, and then we're going to find our glue pin here, and I'm going to put just a little bit of glue right there. And then I'm going to put a pin just for extra, so that if it pops off, I still know where my center is. So I have that pinned together. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. We have to have right sides together. Open this up, and then take and put a pin there. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take and start with this edge, and I'm going to actually line it right up along the edge there. So I want this to be nice and straight right along here. You shouldn't have to clip this curve. It's a pretty big curve, and so if you can't get it to lay down, you can do some clipping on it, all right? But I want this to lay flat along there, and I'm going to take my pin and I'm going to set it back about, a little bit over 1/4 inch from the edge of that. And I'm going to put another one down below so that I have this straight edge there to work with. And then we're going to roll over to this one, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to square up the ends And if you have a hard time pulling on that, then just go ahead and put a little bit of glue right on that corner so it holds it in place, and then grab your pin. And on this one, I'm only going to put one pin in there rather than the two. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to pleat this, and I'm going to fold, and then I'm going to pleat this one. I'm going to pleat this. And what I'm doing is basically pulling all of these pleats right down to the corner of this block down here. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this as if you were drawing lines down there, and I'm just folding this fabric over towards that point. Now, because I left the paper on, it keeps that tight, or lays that flat, and I get this look from it. So I have it all pleated, and now I can come in and glue those edges there, and all of this is just coming towards that point. All right? So we're going to start here in the middle, and I'm going to work back to the edge. And we're just going to make sure that that whole piece lays down on there, and got it all matched up. And if you don't get enough glue on there, then you may end up with an issue of it trying to pucker as you start sewing. Okay. We're going to put glue here. I don't like using pins when I do my curved piecing, because pins quite often, every time where you hit a pin, if the fabric is moving underneath there, then it's going to bunch up and cause little puckers. And so I really prefer to work with the glue than putting 20 or 30 pins in there. The other thing about the glue is if I have to move it, it's pretty easy to move it and position it. So I'm going to set this one aside. I'm going to put something on top of it, and then we're going to do this one. So I'm going to put just a touch of glue right here on that corner, and then I'm going to grab my flower pins, and again we're going to glue the edges, and I come in about a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. And I usually use 2 pins on the first side. Okay. Then we're going to come over here and put just a little bit of glue on that corner. Get a perfect match along there. I have a thread. I'm going to cut that thread off. Whenever you're doing a curve, you want to match both ends before you start sewing. You don't want to just start sewing and then hope that it ends up where it's supposed to, because probably about 90 times out of 100 it won't. It'll actually start stretching the fabric. And that's one of the benefits of using your glue, is when you glue the two fabrics together along the edges of that seam allowance, both fabrics travel through the feed dogs at the same time, and so you don't end up with it bunching and one of them pulling more than the other. All right, so we're going to pleat again. And it takes a little bit of practice to get this pleating down, but it doesn't have to be perfect. All right. I see I missed a couple little pieces where the seams are sticking up when I was gluing, so I'm just going to put a touch of glue right on that, and just a touch right there. All right, so now I have this, and we're going to glue the whole thing down. So start from the center and move out to the first edge where you're going to start sewing. Okay, and then when you are doing the other half, start at the end and work back to the center. Okay, so we have both of those in position. Now we're just going to take these, and if I was doing a whole stack, I'd just lift this up, put this one on top of it, and then do the next one, and just keep the process, and then come and do all the sewing at one time. So let's go to our machine. And we'll take our very first piece. And we're going to put the pressure foot down, and actually, because this is fabric, has a tendency to fray, I'm going to start sewing on my paper. Okay, and then I'm just going to lay this down underneath there, and I'm going to pull the first pin out before I start sewing, because I have the pressure foot setting on it, so I don't have to worry about it moving. Plus I put a little bit of glue on there, and now we're just going to start doing a curved seam. As you're sewing, 1.5 inches, pull the second pin out along the first edge, and then you just start pulling those pleats back to the back of the machine, behind the machine. And then we're going to pull the next one, and it lays down all your seams for you. I'll pull the one out of the center. Pull the very last pin out, sew off the end, then we're going to pick up the next piece, and all we have to do on this one is just start sewing. I'm going to pull the pin out because my machine won't sew over those pins, and now we're going to take and start pulling back that edge to make sure that everything's laying down flat. One of the nice things about the glue, rather than 20 pins along there, is I only have to pull out a couple pins as I start my curved seam. All right, we got those done. Now we're going to cut these apart, and we're going to remove this little piece of paper that we sewed under there. Cut our threads at the end. Then we're going to lay it down, and you're going to see you have a nice straight edge and a nice straight edge on your piece. And we have the same thing here. It's nice and straight there and nice and straight there. So we have a nice straight block. Now the other thing I want to do is tell you that TRP lines, at this point, I don't need these TRP lines anymore, so I'm just going to get rid of them now before I go any further. And all I have to do is just take my seam ripper and break it. And so what I do is I break that thread right along that seam there, and then I can back it off just a couple stitches, grab a hold of the thread and pull it out, and there we go. So now I don't have a million of these TRP lines that I have to remove when I start sewing my blocks together. So we have one here and one here. And we'd also have one right here, because the others I just used my seam and the marks to find where it had to match. And on this one I should only have one here to pull out too. All right, so some of you, I don't know for sure in your instructions whether I mentioned it or not, but on these blocks, when you were actually assembling all of this, some of the blocks have a P line over on this side. And what that TRP line, you don't use quilt. So for these blocks are from our mixers that are called fireworks mixers. And when you do the 4th of July and some of the other ones, basically when we put them together, we put them together like that. And where that seam comes in, right there, it actually would match up to this seam when you put your corner block in. And so that's what that TRP line is for. On this quilt, we put the corner block inside. Those TRP that you may have on those outside, you're not going to use those. So if you haven't started sewing any of those, just think about that you don't need the ones that are around the outside edge of the blocks, because they're not going to line up to anything, okay? So I'm going to take, and we're going to put a little bit of and we're going to finish pressing this. And again, I did not have to pull and put a lot of steam on that because I used that starch pin, and it works really, really good. All right. I can see I have another TRP line right here that I missed. So we're going to grab those and get those out of those. And these are from when we did the curved piecing to join the blocks. So anyway, pull the TRP lines out as you go. That just saves you a lot of extra time at the end. And you don't end up missing them on a small block like you would if you were working on the whole quilt. And even if you like doing those and pulling those out when you sit down and watch TV, you can set all the blocks on your lap at the TV before you sew them together. It's just a lot easier. Right. And I will tell you, the quilters won't pull them out for you. They'll quilt right over them. Because it's not one of those things that they're not watching for a TRP line, so they're focusing. Look at this thing's not popping up the way it's supposed to. I'm going to have a fire in here. Yeah, it's not going to pop up anymore. All right. So we've got our blocks done. Now the next thing on my list here, let's see, we did the curved piecing, we put the outside, so we're going to remove the paper from the B units. So how many of you were out there watching my iron to see whether or not it was going to start up and smoke pretty soon? Right. So what you want to do is start with the very last piece that you put on and remove everything in descending order. And what you'll find is they'll come off a lot easier. The other thing that I am going to show you, it's not really worth it on this, but I'm going to show it to you. It is a nice trick. When I'm doing removing a lot of paper, I'll actually get my purple thing and pull this under. But if you have a long line, you can actually take this, and when you put if you put your fold template right along your tear line, it tears off really nice. This one's a little bit hard to do it that way because we sewed the curve over the top of the paper. But if you have your purple thing where you can pull that up, or if you have a stiletto works as well. And then you just take that and fold that, tear it right up along that stitch line, and it gets a lot of that paper off. All right, so we got the paper off of it, and now we're going to go get the light table set up, and we're going to start doing the applique. And I'm going to shut my iron off because we're not going to use it anymore. The light table we're going to use is Caterpillar Glow, and I really like it. It has a couple light settings on it, a dim and then a really bright one. So if I push on it the first time, it's a little bit dim, and then I can push on it again, and then I can actually push on it a third time and it just gets brighter. So there's 3 settings on the light, okay? I'm going to show you, I use a lot of repositionable glue, and so it's kind of there's glue all over it. When you're done, just take your Clorox wipes and wipe all of that off, and it comes out perfectly clean. So I was doing some applique this morning, gluing some on. So we're going to start with the little corner pieces. So I'm going to run over here. I'm going to grab the newsprint, the bag, and the corner piece. So in your pattern, we gave you news that has all of the applique designs on it, okay? And if you look on page 18 of your pattern at the bottom, it shows you what those newsprints look like. Go ahead and cut those out, all right? Notice that on those newsprint, you have these AGL lines, and those AGL lines are used for the machine embroidery. I don't necessarily use the AGL lines for what I'm doing, because if mine shift just a little bit, we're never going to. When you're doing the machine embroidery, you need to have it right where it's supposed to be. So those AGL lines are there to help you line that up, okay? I just take, to get that to lay down, just take a little bit of your repositionable glue and put on there. I already glued this one down earlier, so I really don't need more on there. And now I can take this and glue it onto my table and get all of the wrinkles out of it. Okay, now then we take this and we put this on top of it. And once I turn the light on, I'm going to see where all of the applique pieces fit. Sometimes once you put the Roxanne's basting glue on the back of your pieces, they have a tendency to soak through and get on the paper. So after I get ready to start gluing everything on, I just take one of my plastic bags and put on there, and then it'll just stick to the plastic bag and it pops right off. Okay, it doesn't rip up off your paper. All right, so we're going to turn, before we turn the light table on, just because it's going to cause it's going to get really dark here in a little bit. We have our C group pieces here. I have them all turned under. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to empty them out, and I'm going to do, so I need one of these pieces go here, and the other one, there's two different pieces in here, so I got to find the right one. Of course, I'm not finding it. There it is. There's my other one. And then this little piece goes up here, so I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to put the rest of them back in my bag. And then I have 1, 2, 3 leaves, and I think all my leaves are the same color in this one. And I have 3 dots. So and all my dots are the same color. And then I used a multi-color, and so each one of them is just a little bit different. You have one leaf that's bigger, and that leaf goes here, and then you have 2 little ones. One of them goes over here, and one of them goes there. So then we can put those pieces back in here. And then we have 1 flower. And then we're going to put these back in the bag so we don't lose them. All right, so now I'm going to turn this up all the way to the highest setting to where I can actually see where I'm at. Now you can actually take a little bit of glue once you get this on and get those corners squared up, and put a touch of glue underneath the corners to keep that, and just glue it down to the paper, and that keeps those from moving. Don't put glue, repositionable glue, on the back of your fabric. Just tie down the corners a little bit. All right, and now we're going to take our Roxanne's basting glue, and I'm actually going to start with my stems because the stems set underneath the flowers. Okay, so we're going to put the first one, and I'm going to start at the tip and just put these little dots right down the center of it, and then I'm going to put the next one, and it's okay to let this dry just a tad. And I'm going to go ahead and do my leaves. Since this is a small piece, getting all of the glue on all of them is just fine. Whoops. Don't want to lose my dots. All right, so now let's turn the light back on. And this little piece is going to go right here. Now remember when I was teaching you how to turn these under, this is flat here. We did not turn the base of the stem under. If you did do that, you need to flatten it back out because you're going to put another piece over the top of it. And if you have a lot of excess there, you may want to trim it back just a tad because you don't want a big long piece underneath your flower. You just want a little bit under there. You'll find that as you did all your ton iron there on all of your pieces, that they don't always come out the same exact perfect shape as the picture, because sometimes you fold it in a little bit more. If you're doing the machine applique, your pieces are going to probably fit exactly perfect along those lines, especially on the points, because you're not doing any turn under. All you're doing is trimming right along the edge of the template piece. So now we're going to take our pieces like this, and we're going to take this one, and this one goes here, and then we have 3 dots. And I forgot to put my plastic under there, so see what happens is it doesn't want to come up as easy. But it's too late now because I glued my corners down. You only have to do 4 of these anyway, so. All right. So I'm going to let that glue just a little, dry just a tad before I put it on. That's the other nice thing about putting a little bit of glue on it before you put it down there, is you don't end up, it doesn't soak through as much. Where it belongs, and pull it all up. And I'm going to let that dry. Now, if you want, you can actually flip this over and heat set it. But if you're not going to be doing your applique, you really don't have to do the heat set because it will totally dry for you. And so there's our first little corner piece. Now I'm just going to pick this up, pull this off, and I would actually do all 4 of my corners if I had them ready. So I'm just going to fold it, put it back on the wall. And that's my C group. And let's get rid of the applique and put that with it so we don't get it mixed up. Now we're going to work with one of these side groups. So this is actually, I paired these up, and this is my left group. And the reason I know that is because I can pair it up. Let's get this shut off. When I look at my picture, this is my square, my large square, and this is a small square, or rectangle. And so when I look at this, this is a square block, and this is my rectangle block. So I know that I'm working with the correct piece, and I had my pieces marked wrong on here last night, because this one is definitely goes with this piece. So the applique goes out along the outside border, right? So let's take and put a little bit of repositional glue on the back of this. Whoops. And then we're going to position this one. And what I want to do is line this line up with this line on here. So once I get that positioned, I'm going to put a little bit of glue right along that seam there. There we go. And then I'm going to move it in just a little bit. I have a little bit of shrinkage in my sewing. There we go. And then this piece is going to go here. And then this one is going to go over here. And what you'll notice is that our newsprint wasn't wide enough, so the edge of the block is actually cut off on the newsprint. But you can line up to that center line and line up that way, and it's going to be good enough. So we're going to put that in there. And so on these pieces, I'm actually going to look really quick. It looks like I have one flower. And these are actually my orange flowers. So we have one of these. It's going to go there. And then for the leaves, there's 3 different size leaves, I believe, in this. So I have a dot, a dot, a dot. And these are all the same color dots. And I thought I had another one. There it is. And then I have a leaf. And I have a big leaf. I know there's at least 2 size leaves. There's another one right here. That's a bigger one. And then we have a little one. So I've got 2 colors of the small leaves. And so that's telling me that I want one of each color. And I'm actually going to switch those and go like that with it. I like that idea better. Okay, and now we're going to take and put all of these back inside there. And now we have our stems. I have a whole bunch more dots there, and I'm like, why do I have those dots? Now I remember why. Because I made, I told you guys that you have extra dots. Well, I made some extra dots. So this piece is going to go right here. And this piece, so this one has it's flat on both sides. That one goes there. So those are my 2 long stems. And then we have some short ones. And I even have dots in here too, so I did a lot of extra dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the extra dots on, but I'm not going to put them on until I get all of my pieces done, and then I'll go through and I'll count all of the extra dots and divide them up between the whole quilt. All right, so this piece is, that's probably a for the other side. So you're going to have some opposite pieces here on these little stems. So these are, goes like this, and then that goes that way, and then I should have 4 that go that way. So we have 4, 1, 2, 3. Because we have to make 4 of these pieces, so you should end up with just the perfect amount. This is 4, 4, and then we should have 4 of each side on the big ones. 4. Okay, so the ones that I don't use on this are going to be for the right side group that I have to put together. So now I just have to figure out, okay, this one looks like it's going to go there. And actually, this is the little one. This is the smallest one. And then this one goes here. And this one goes here. All right, so I have all my pieces there. Now, I also have extra dots in this bag. So if I want to put some different colored dots in here, I can, but I think I'm going to wait, and then I'll come back and add them after I know how many of each color I have. I'll divide them up. So we'll put these in this bag. To hold these together so I don't have to sort them again, I'm actually just going to put a paper clip on them. And I'm going to keep one of these out. I'll put the rest of them back in the bag. And we're going to keep, let's see, it's one of this one. That goes in the bag. And then I keep that one. So these are going to be for my right side there. Now I'm going to pull these big stems out as well, because I should have an opposite on those. This one does not have an opposite, but these do. So this is my opposite. And then these, there's one. I don't think those are opposite. Oh yeah, they actually are opposite. So this is my opposite. So those pieces are opposite. They're pretty close, so if you got them mixed up, I don't think you'd ever notice it. But the curve on them is just a little bit more of a curve on this end than there is on that end. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. So let's go through and let's put the easy pieces down. And I'm going to get all my dots. And I should show you before I go any further that if I don't want these to stick, I can actually just take this plastic bag and put it right underneath there like that. And that'll stop it from sticking down. It will lift it off of the glass just a little bit, but you can still see where your pieces are going to go. that one. All right, so let's move those stems. And this has a little tail on it, so I'm going to clip that tail off. And I usually just go right down through those stems. And when you place that, you need to make sure that you place it down enough to where when the other stem comes over, it's going to lay over the raw edges there at the bottom. This one has a tail on it. This one has a little bit of a tail. Okay, so now we're going to move the flower, and this it's going to fit underneath there just like that. And it's going to hang off the edge a little bit, which that's fine. And then this one. All right, and now we have our flower. And that's going to sit right in the center. Okay, move that down here just like that. All right, so we have that piece done. And we're going to very quickly do this one. What time is it? 3:15? 2:15? Oh, we're doing good. All right, so I'm going to take this one, put it back with this piece, and we're going to grab this one. So again, on this piece, this should be my square piece, and this is that group. And so we're going to line this up. I'm going to have to put some repositional glue on this. Line that up. Line it up there. Right, so this one's gonna go here. Actually, I think I have the wrong piece there. Let's grab these big pieces. and find the one that actually fits. That one fits. Okay. And this little one, that one goes there. Actually, this one goes here. The littlest one goes at that top. That one goes here. And this one sits right here. This piece goes here. And then we have to grab our leaves, which are in here. We need one flower. And then we need our leaves. So that's my big one. And then this one is the medium-sized one. And we have that one. And we have that one. And then we have all of my little green dots. I should have 1, 2, there's my third one, and there should be another one right here. I'm kind of thinking that I'm supposed to be using these other dots along with these, just because I don't have very many left in here. So I'll figure that out after I'm not doing the demo. I'll come back and look at it. So I want to go over one little thing with you guys that's on here. So on the first piece we did, I didn't have to do any adjusting on the long one because it actually fit differently because of the way the blocks were. On this one, this is a little bit shorter piece. Stem, but we kept the stems all the same, so I'm gonna have quite a bit hanging over right here at this point, so I'm gonna actually adjust the length of down just a little bit. All right, so you'll have to do that too between the two, the left and the right edges, is adjust these longer stems. This one's fitting just fine on there. And so I think I have everything else in place. And if I've got the wrong circles, I know where to find them. They're really easy to pull off if I have to pull them off, so I'm not going to be too concerned about it right now. So we're going to take these. And I do think I'm going to slip this plastic underneath these big stems. There we go. Move that out of the way. And the one thing I could do is look at my picture. And yeah, I'm supposed to be mixing them. I'm supposed to be using my orange ones right along here. There we go. Might as well do that now since I'm figured that one out. Put our orange. And then on these, I think those are supposed to be, those are my orange too. So I have the orange ones on the inside. There we go. Alright, so that piece is done. I'll have to go back and change my other little dots. Alright, so this piece goes up here. And then I'm going to show you this piece. Now I made one of these, but I want to show you how to place it as well again. And then I want to go back and show you how to tuck it in. There's my bag. right, so this piece doesn't fit on the table, but all we have to do is do the first half, and I already put the repositionable glue on this one. And on this one, what I like to do is square up around that center square. And this one, I want my blue to be up here. And so let's find, there's my marks right there. As long as I get it on that center square, it pretty much squares it up where it needs to be. So I'm going to put a touch of glue along this edge to kind of hold that in place. And then we'll come over and we'll do the same thing here. Now you guys are going to notice that there's going to be a little bit of a distortion on these things until you start getting them assembled and lay out. Don't worry about that. That's just typical for all quilts. After you start sewing your pieces, everything shrinks a little bit, especially when you work with curved piecing, right? So these pieces, we do the same exact steps that we did before. But the stem is the last piece on here. So I need, and all of the stems are the same. So we need 4 stems to do this. And you have different size leaves here. And if you pay attention and to your colors, you should have one stem. Each one of your stems is a different color. I wasn't paying much attention because I was in the car, and when I was doing this I was with my grandkids, so I actually ended up with these 2 are one color group and these 2 are another color group, which is just fine. So this one's going to go here, that one goes there. On the little ones I did them all the right color. And then this one, actually this one goes here. There we go. That's why. Two of these. So when I did my first one, I want to make sure I got it set up the same way. So I have these 2. This one goes here, and this one goes with this group, and this one goes with that group, and that one goes over here. 1, 2. Put these back in the bag. And then we have this one. This one is my opposite. It goes like that. And then this one is going to go, oh, this one is another one of these. So that one. And then this one is an opposite. And so I have that one, and that one, and that one. So I need this one. It would have made it easier if I'd been paying attention, but it's fine. This one goes here, and this one goes here. So that gives me 3, 3, 3, and I can't see there, so I'm just going to wait on those. Then we have this and this one. And this one. And we have a dot, a dot, a dot, and a dot. So this is one of the places I'm going to use my extra dots. So then we're going to have that one. And then on this, I'm going to put it here. And then this one goes here. And this one goes here. This one goes out here. And this one goes in here. All right, so there's all my pieces. So we're going to glue our dots on. Oh, got that one. All right, so let's move this. This one I don't have the end pulled down as far as it needs to be, so I'm going to clean that up. Now before I put pressure on those, I'm going to slip this plastic bag underneath that corner. And then we're going to put this one in place. And this is actually going to fit, so my seam is right here. I want that to overlap my seam about 1/4 of an inch, so I didn't put any glue right there, all right? Because I'm going to tuck that in. I'm going to pick that seam out right here and tuck that in. All right, so those are on. So let's move the bag this direction. I'm going to do a little cleanup on that piece. Right. The reason you guys have to sew these 4 blocks together before putting these on is because the big stems go over the seam allowance. We're going to pull that down. We need to have about 1/4 of an inch overhang where that seam is. Right. And I can get this one on before I have to move it. Wrong glue. And then this piece fits in here like this. So that's overlapping about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, that one's on. So now we're going to take this. We're going to pull the whole paper down to do that last one. I'm just going to make sure I'm still lined up, and I am. Right there. And then I'm going to move this under that corner like that. I'm just going to glue it back down because it's wanting to move on me. So I get a couple of those corners down. One, two, three. There's my brightest setting. All right, so on this one, I want this piece here, and I want this piece here, and then I want my little teeny piece here, and then I want a leaf, and then the leaf I want is this one, and then I want my blue leaf up here, and then I want my dot here, and my big stem is the last. So put all these little pieces on. I'm going to try to do this without leaning next to it and pushing it out of position. And this one needs a little bit of cleanup right here. Okay, so as you guys can see, you're going to have a little bit of time gluing all of that applique on, but your tables really come in handy. So the light tables work really nice, and so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to tuck in these little edges here. And then we're gonna go over some machine applique. And I have a piece. Now, when you do your machine applique, you want to make sure that these pieces are dry before you actually start trying to do your applique. Otherwise, they'll pop off on you. So make sure that they're dry. I usually let them set overnight, and then I don't have to worry about them falling off. So I'm going to put this back on the wall. Right here. And we're going to move this out of the way. Okay, so we're done with our light table, so let's just unplug it and get it off the table here. So I did my stitches and just undid those stitches right there, and then all you have to do is just poke that in underneath that seam. So I have this one under, we have to pull this one and pull that out. Now, I do have to go back and re-sew those, and I'm going to do that before we do anything else. And so let's go ahead and just re-stitch all of those little spots. So that's my first one. That's the second one. That's the third one. So let's find where the fourth one's at. Which is, I did that one right here. Now when you're doing those, make sure you don't get a little pucker in there when you're restitching those seams. Alright, they all look good. I don't have any little puckers, and they're all sewn in, okay? So the one thing that I think I missed was how to do the sewing on the Cornerstone, and so we're going to go back and I'm going to do that for you before I put my applique thread on. All right, so let's put this on the wall. Here's my pieces. So these are 4 rectangles, And the way it's set up on my color is this piece goes here. And this one fits like this. And this one fits like this. Now, I got this one in the wrong place. So that's one of the things you guys want to watch out for, because when I put these together last night, I actually put them together this way, and you don't want to do that because then none of your applique fits on there. So pay attention and make sure that you're setting your pieces together and you're doing this corner, and then your cornerstone goes right in there, okay? And that way you don't have to spend an hour and a half picking them all out and redoing them the way they're supposed to. I'm so used to doing the 4th of July, and the 4th of July does it the other way, but you want it to look like this. So we're going to take one corner piece, and it really doesn't matter where I start. I just have to start one place. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and fold this over, and I'm going to line it up along this edge and this edge right here, okay? And I'm going to sew from the edge here about halfway, and then I'm going to stop my seam allowance. So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on there just to make sure it doesn't move on me. Okay, let's go ahead and put the, well, I would put the lid, but somewhere I've lost it. It's probably on the floor somewhere. So let's set it aside. All right, so I'm going to sew from the edge right to the middle, and then we're going to, and that's called a half seam. You don't have to tie a knot or anything. Just sew and then cut your thread. All right, so now I'm going to actually press this, and these are pressed into the square. All right, since I shut my iron off, I'm going to do my, just a finger press along there. I'm just going to run a little bit of this glue to make sure it's opened up. Or not glue, but starch pen. All right, now I'm going to take this piece, and this is a full seam, so I'm going to start on this end and go to this end. All right, so we're going to check. You may want to adjust, you may have to adjust the sizes of that square just a little bit because of the shrinkage in your block. And if you do, check that before you go, because if you adjust it, you're going to want to adjust it all the way around and just take a sliver of the fabric off all the way around, okay? I did not adjust it. I probably should have, but I think I can, I'm going to have a little bit of variance here. So I think I will adjust it. So let's grab a little ruler. And I'm just going to take a sliver off. I mean, I'm not even at a 32nd of an inch, but it's just keeps me from having to stretch it due to the shrinkage in the blocks and the curved piecing. So if I do two sides equally, then that's going to downsize that about the same. All right, I could just pull and stretch, but I don't want to, because that kind of has a tendency to distort the block. All right, so we're going to take this. That looks much better. Now I can just lay it on there, and it fits really nice, and I don't have to pull on anything. So let's grab, and I'm going to glue this edge because there's a lot of bulk right here where all of those straight seams. And then I'm going to touch there where that curve is. And then I'm going to touch this up along here. Okay. And then we're going to sew. And I'm going to increase my stitch length a little bit because I don't want a really tight stitch length on this. All right. So this one is also going to get pressed in towards the square. So let's grab our starch pen. Just run it along that seam to get that to lay down. And then I'll come back and press it after the fact. All right, so now I'm going to take this one. And that works pretty good. I'm glad I took that sliver off of it. This has its in just a little bit, so what I'm going to do is just let that lay the way it's looking, and I'll have just a little bit less seam allowance along that rather than stretching that block. So let's go ahead and put the glue on there.
One of the comments was that your blocks might be in the wrong position, so you might want to double check them one more time.
Yeah, I did. See?
I know I saw that lady also. I wonder if she's right or not, though.
Yeah, I did. When I picked it up and turned it over to adjust that, then I put it back in the wrong position. So I'm going to just finish it, and then I'll come in and move that just so you guys can see how to assemble, okay? And then I can just come back and fix that. But thank you for catching. I would have figured it out as soon as I put it on the wall, like I did last night. So that one's on correct, and then this one's going to go on like this. And so I'm going to just take this and press right along this edge, and when I replace that, all I have to do is just come down and pull this seam down about halfway and then flip that and put it back together. I don't have to tear the whole block apart. And that's looking like it's going to fit nicely. And on this one, I have to take that, and I'm going to put my glue right at the end of it. right, so let's put some starch on that. Okay, so now all I have to do is just come in here and match up there at the top and complete my seam right down to where that half seam is. And I'm going to grab a little bit of glue, glue the edges. Right. So the other thing I want to go over is when you get this done, just put it on your board and kind of make sure it's squaring up pretty good. Mine is actually squaring up really nice. I've got just a little bit of a issue on this side, so I'm just going to clean that up right now on that block. All right, so anyway, that's the way it's supposed to look. I do this a lot. I make things, I put them on the wall, I take a picture, I send a message to Judelle with the picture and say, the quilt's done. She sends a picture back to me with a circle here and a circle there and a circle there. That one's upside down, that one's sideways, that's in the wrong place. And so then I get to pick them out and start over again. So anyway, that's how you put a cornerstone in, and they're really easy to work with because you don't have any. The only half seam is the very first seam that you're going to do. All right. So we covered that part. So let's go ahead and do the sashing. I'm going to put this up so I don't. And this piece, this is for something. Oh, these are just showing which pieces to sew. So you got to make sure to follow your instructions where you have a square and a rectangle, and then you have on this one you have a square and a rectangle. So on this one, if you look at it when it's all put together, my rectangle's here, my square's here. Then I have a rectangle and then a square. So this is the top part, and then the two corners go on the end of it, all right? So when you're putting them up, you really need to lay these on a little bit to make sure that you get all of your colors in the right place before you start sewing. And then once you get them, you know you have them in the right place, put a pin in them, because then you don't flip them over the way I just did, okay? So that's what that demo is for. All right. So this is our sashing. And this is actually part of, I think the sashing comes with this booklet. That's the assembly stuff. I'm just checking to make sure it doesn't come with the queen. It might be part of the queen. No, it is. It's in this booklet. So on page 5 is where it actually tells you how to cut these out. All right. So you have a piece of fabric. It's 14 inches wide, and we're going to open it up, and I'm going to just take my starch pen and I'm going to get rid of this thing in the middle. All I have to do is just place that and run that right down that crease, and it's perfectly flat now. That one. We'll do one more over here. Okay, so I love this starch pen for this reason, because I used to avoid cutting on that fold because it sets like that in the store and it's really hard to get that fold out, and so I just always cut from this side to this side. And when I started using this pen, it just takes that and lays it right out, and there is no crease at all left. So we're going to take these pieces, and these are actually set up as a layout sheet. And they have TRP lines, and you really should use those TRP lines, because those TRP lines are going to match up to where some of these blocks come together. Okay, so they match up to the seam lines. They don't match up to another TRP. So when you sew the whole thing together, you'll be able to figure out where exactly it's supposed to match. And then if it ends up being a little bit big, you can actually trim off the ends and you'll be okay with it. Where it's supposed to set up. Okay, so we're going to take and put a little bit of repositionable glue on the back side of each one of these. Let's move this one up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to actually come through and sew those TRP lines now before I trim this apart. I'm not going to worry about cutting any threads on the TRP except right here, because the rest of them are going to get cut off when I trim this out. So now I'm going to take my ruler and we're going to trim around the outside edge. And now we're going to do cut line 1. Now we're going to go to cut line 2. And we're going to go to cut line 3. And then we're going to trim off this little piece here. And then if you want, you can trim that smart corner. Okay, and then we're going to trim that smart corner there. I don't always worry about the smart corners when I'm working with long pieces, especially if I'm working with a batik, because if I accidentally flip one of those pieces over, then the smart corners aren't going to match up on a long strip like that. The other thing you'll find is when you're working with long borders and stuff is if you're working with a batik and a lot of your pieces are the same size, if you don't assemble them in the exact same order as what it tells you to, it'll go together a lot of times, but then the smart corner will be backwards. And so when I'm working with really large borders, I don't worry too much about the smart corners as I do when I'm working with the small blocks and the curves and triangles and things like that. So each one of these, so you have one straight edge one and then your diagonal edge one, okay? So I'm going to actually just take and rip the fabric right off like that, and I'm going to sew those two together. I'm going to leave the paper on the rest of it for now. And then we're going to press it. So the reason I like to do it this way, sometimes when you're sewing all this up, you're going to end up with a bunch of these pieces that might have bias on them. And it's easier to get this all to fit properly when you don't, if you leave the paper on, because this gives you the exact size it's supposed to be. And once you remove the paper, sometimes your fabrics will stretch a little bit. So it just helps me keep everything kind of organized, and then when I go to put this on, I can see exactly where it's supposed to go and what all of the lines are supposed to match up to as I'm putting it together. And this one must go here because it definitely doesn't go where I had it. Yep, because now my TRP lines are matching up, and so anyway, that's the way you're going to work that out. And I may have sewn the wrong end because that one didn't match up. I might have sewn the wrong end. So let's look in the instructions for a minute and look at that, because it might tell you when you assemble those exactly which ones are supposed to go where. And if you flip it, so this is supposed to be my XR2, and this one's supposed to be my XR1, right there, which it is, and then when I come over here, so no, I think I have it. I do believe I have them all in the right order there. So, the way they're supposed to go together. Nope, I have one of them off. So you do need to pay attention to how that's set up and make sure before you sew them together, because if you look at the center pieces, these XL ones, the TRP line's in the wrong spot on each one. So I should have assembled this piece onto it, because what that does is that puts my TRP lines now would have matched up where they were supposed to. So pay attention to that and make sure you're getting those where they are supposed to go, all right, instead of just sew them together. And if you mess them up, just make them fit, all right? All right, so we're going to take these and put these back in the bag. But these things are really cool when we do it this way, because they're so straight and it keeps them from stretching, and you can get a lot cleaner cut when you do it this way than when you're trying to cut everything across with the fabric folded. So this just is a really accurate way to get really straight pieces. All right, so we went through that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the queen size. What time is it? 3:15. So that'll give us just about right 45 minutes to go through, and it probably won't even take that long to go through the sorting of the fabric and the templates for the queen group.
Before you move on, someone on your YouTube channel had asked if you were going to stitch your applique on.
Yeah.
And I let them know yes, but I didn't know what video that was coming in.
I'm gonna see. We should be able to do it. Okay. Somebody wanted to know if I was gonna stitch the applique on. I'm gonna go through this queen size stuff, and then I'm gonna start on the applique, because I have to switch out all of the machine and everything. And then we'll just keep videoing it. If you guys want to stay in and watch, that's fine, but we will get started, because sorting these fabrics isn't going to take very long for the queen. And since we have to move all the thread and go through the thread stuff, we'll start that after this, right? Okay. So I have all my fabric. This is my applique. These are my bags. And we're going to move this board out of the way. And we have our instructions. So in the very first video we did, I believe I went through and showed you how to organize your fabrics. So I have mine all in order. My fabric D1, D2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to the very last fabric. I like to do that because normally when you go through your cutting instructions, it's in the order of the fabric. Not necessarily the order of the template layout sheets, but the order of the fabric. And we're going to start on page 3 for this. And I have all my bags, but we're not going to do anything with the bags until after we cut all the pieces. The reason why is because a bunch of these pieces have to be put, you cut them, the templates are for the left and right pieces. So before you put anything in your bags with the foundation papers, you're going to have to go through the whole cutting process. Right now we're just going to sort the template papers with the fabric, and then I'm going to come back and we'll do all the cutting after the fact. And you guys can do that on your own because we went over that in the previous videos. So these are all just papers, newsprint. So I have all my templates in here, and they're all sorted in numerical order. So the very first template layout sheet I have is number 1, and it goes all the way down, I believe, to number 12. Now our the fabric and the template layout sheets don't, sometimes you have to dig through the template layout sheets to find everything you need. These are T templates, and they have to be put with the fabric, so I'm going to put those on the bottom here. So let's read. For fabric D1, it says I need template layout sheet number 1. And remember, I told you just go in and mark it with a yellow pen when you go starting to cut them out. Before you cut them out, take the whole sheet and mark where those layout sheets are, because then it's easy to find them. And then at this one, this is my template layout sheet number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some paper binder clips here, and I'm just going to clip those layout sheets to this. And reading through here, I like to go through all of my instructions and mark down where what bags they're supposed to go into after it's cut as well. And the rest of it you have to read, but if you're just looking to see a bag number, it's easy to look, and if you have it highlighted, then your eye goes right to that. But the rest of it you have to read as you go through your instructions. But those pieces go with my fabric D1. Now we're going to go down to fabric D2, and that's this piece. And fabric D2 actually has template layout sheet number 6 and number 7. But if I read through fabric D2, it also gives me the option to build my basket without piecing it. Okay, so if you have a fabric that's like a designer fabric or something that's plaids, you may not want to piece the pieces, and so you can actually just glue the templates on there, and we have templates for that. So I need to look for template layout sheet number 6, so I'm going to go down through my pile a little bit. This is 4, this is 5, and this is number 6. Okay, and I also need, that's 6 and 7 is what I need. All right, now I'm going to bring your attention that these template layout sheets have a correction on them. Okay, so basically we marked them backwards. No matter how you cut them out, even if you don't find that correction, you're going to be just fine, because this piece will go here in this, because they're a mirror image of each other. So just pay attention to that, but that is the way they do have a correction on them. I'm going to actually do piecing with mine, but I did want to show you if you're doing the one that you don't want to piece on, then you go ahead and you cut this out. And let's say you have something where you want a big flower in there. What I like to do is get it like this, and then I cut the center out. And I just kind of make a window. And these pieces are supposed to go on the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, but if I had something where I wanted to make sure the flower was in the center, I could actually just take these and flip them over, and now I can position that onto my fabric to make sure that I have that where I want it to go. And then I can do the same thing with this one. If I do this one as a window, let's go ahead and cut it out so you can see kind of how it works. So now I can see where those are at. The other thing I can do here is I can cut this seam allowance off right here after I get it set up. And because if I have my light table, I can lay that seam allowance and get those set up exactly where they're supposed to go. I don't have the light table on, but I can put those in the right on top of each other, and I can have my fabric and make sure that my fabric, so once I get my first piece cut out, then I can go find wherever that same location is over here and get that positioned and bring it over and overlap those the way they're supposed to, and then come back and cut it out and leave my seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to put this on this fabric right here. And so where this is a plaid, I would probably want those two plaids to come together in the same spot, you know, to keep the lines lined up rather than have one down here. I would actually set it up like this, and now I know that my lines are going to come together. And because I have dark lines coming this way, I would probably set that up to where when I cut that off, my dark lines would actually go into the seam allowance, so that when I did this one, that when I sewed it back together, I would have almost the same distance between that, and then you would not be able to see where you're setting with that. One of the other things you can do when you're working with something like this is you can actually take, and if you're trying to get it to match perfectly, you can actually take those and sew them together where they match perfectly and leave a wide seam allowance underneath it. And then after you get that everything lined up perfectly, then you can take the first piece and lay it down and lay that piece right along that seam allowance and glue it on to your fabric, and then open up your seam allowance, and then you would do your cutting so that you had your seam allowance, and you would do the same thing with the other side. So if you're going to play with these pieces and you don't want to piece that basket and you want everything to come out and your flowers to come together, that's a really good way to work that. But you can't just like put a flower right in the middle like this and then cut them out, because you're going to lose the seam where the flower is. So you got to pay a little bit of attention to how that you do your fussy cutting. All right, I'm not going to work with the fussy cutting. One thing you do have to realize is when you put this template on, that it does have to be on the back side the way it's set up, because then when you pull your foundation papers off, it actually goes on there. If you're fussy cutting, you probably want to do all of that right with papers. Don't even use these, because your foundation papers will help you get those exactly where you're supposed to set them. And it's a little bit easier to do it that way by just gluing the foundation paper onto the first piece and then getting the other one to match up perfectly. All right, so pay a little bit of attention to how those baskets go together for you. I'm not going to use those. I'm using this, so I'm going to just get rid of that. And we're going to take these pieces and we're going to clip them onto that fabric right there. Okay, so now we're going to go to fabric D3, and D3 uses template D1, and what that is that's my sashing. Okay, if I choose to do the fussy cut one where we're not going to do the paper piecing, you don't need this piece, so you can just skip over it. All right, I'm actually using it on mine, so I need fabric D3, which is this one, and I'm just going to clip that onto here. And then we're going to go down to fabric D4, which is this piece, and D4 uses template layout sheet number 3, which are my veins, and then it also calls for template layout sheet number 8. Okay, and you'll see the 8 is actually set up along the side, and what this piece is it's the little tiny base in the basket right there. So those two pieces we're going to clip onto this one, and then we're going to turn the page, and fabric D5 has template layout sheet number 4 and number 5. So those two go here. Those are the base on your basket. And then we go to fabric D6. Template layout sheet number 9 and number 10. I have 2 template layout sheets for number 9, and I have 1 template layout sheet for number 10. And we're going to put that right there. And then the next one is fabric D7. And I believe that's this one. And it calls for layout sheet number 11 and template layout sheet number 12. And I'm going to put a paper clip on this. And my last piece, this is actually a T template, and this is T template. It calls for T template D5 through D9. And what you'll find is all of the T templates that you need are not all in here. There's actually, you have a D5, a D8, a D9, and then I believe that when you cut the pieces for fabric D1, that there's some T templates in there that will go back into this bag as well. So you'll have to move those back in the bag after they're cut. So I'm just going to take this fabric and put it inside the bag. All right. So we have everything stacked and it's ready to cut. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the cutting process, but I'm going to just have the video turned on one of these days, and I'll just cut the whole thing out. We will record me cutting it. There won't be a lot of verbiage to it, but I will go through that, and when we're done, we'll just post it out there so that you have the whole cutting and the sorting of all the pieces. But it'll take me probably about 3-4 hours of just cutting and sorting to get everything in the right bags. So we're going to do that when it's not live. All right, so let's put all of these back in my box here. And what time is it? 3:30. So let's go over some basics on the applique. And I actually picked out some thread I have some green thread and some green thread. And this is a silk thread. The other types of threads I use are Wonderfill, and I don't have my box of Wonderfill in here, but these are YLI. I just want to bring to your attention that we have so many companies out there that make applique thread, and I haven't found anybody yet that I don't like. So don't get hung up on the brands just because I use them. What you want to do is look at what you're using and decide if you like the way it's looking. So I use, when I'm working with batiks, I normally use the Wonderfill or the silk, the YLI, and they're both 100 weight. And the Wonderfill is a polyester. The Wonderfill is a little bit thinner, and so it really buries nicely into the batiks. This thread, this is YLI, it sits a little bit more on top of the batik. Something else I use a lot is 80 weight cottons or 60 weight cottons. When I use those, I use them mostly on a heavy cotton fabric. But I don't use them on batiks because they don't disappear. They just sit on top and they look bulky on there. So it's more of, the thread you use is more about the look that you're after. And on these pieces, I don't want to use the Wonderfill because this is a looser weave cotton, but I don't want to use the heavier cotton threads because I do want it to bury and kind of disappear. And so I'm kind of setting in between the heavier weight and the really, really lightweight. And that's why I chose my silk threads, YLI. And we're going to work with the little corner piece. So the neat thing about the way we set this up is you don't have to sew the quilt together and then come back and do the applique. You're actually going to do the applique on the individual block groups, okay? So once you get these block groups sewn together, you get all the applique, and then you can just go through and start doing everything. I'm going to show you how to do this. I want something that's going to blend in, and so I picked kind of a heavy green to do that, and then I picked this teal color for my little circles. And I'll probably pick a little bit different teal on my flower. I'll probably use this one on the 3 lighter petals, and then I'll go to a darker teal blue on the outside. So what I like to do when I'm doing applique is I'll go through and have all my pieces stacked, and I'll do all of this color wherever I'm using it on all the different pieces, and then I'll grab the next thread, do all of those colors, and so instead of just finishing up one block, I'm going to be working through all of my blocks. And so like when I do my yellows, little centers, I'm going to do that on all of them. So I only have to change the thread in between, all right? You're going to use a size 60 needle, and I believe I probably didn't bring the 60 in here today. So I'm doing a demo with my 70, but you really should be using the 60. It's 60/8, and you want a micro tip, which is the sharp point, okay? And then the other thing I want to bring to your attention is if you can't see to thread that 68, then just use a 70, because you have to be able to thread it. And if you just can't thread it, the 60, then just don't use it. You're not going to notice that much of a difference between it. The 60 leaves a little bit smaller hole when you're working with the batiks. With this cotton, I wouldn't even notice a difference between the 60 and the 70 size needle. So we'll just go ahead and use the 70 today. I think I use the same thread in the bobbin as I use on the top. I love these little things because once I do a bobbin, I can just keep that bobbin with that spool like that. Although I don't have enough, I could use about another 100 of these. I have noticed that with applique thread, you have a large quantity of colors, where when I'm stitching just for paper piecing, I basically use very medium weight colors like beige and sometimes light blues, but I don't have that many different colors threads that we work with, except when we're doing applique. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my needle, the 70 weight needle in there. I have a Bernina, and so I need to, when I thread my bobbin, there's a little hole in the front of in the arm of this, and I'm going to actually thread that thread through that hole. And so we're going to put this in. When you're winding your bobbins, realize that this thread goes a long ways. If you wind the whole bobbin, it'll totally take it off of this. So if you're not going to be doing a lot of applique with that color, just put a little bit on your bobbins, rather than, because it might take you 4 years to use the whole bobbin when you're working with applique. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it through that little hole, and what that does is it tightens the tension on the bottom and it pulls my threads down so I don't see the loose threads on the top. And then we're going to put that in our bobbin. Okay, and then we're going to take the one on the top and we're going to take this and the one thing you want to watch for is, like, a lot of, if you have a spool of thread that has a little slice in it and you pull the thread through there, make sure that that slice is like not on the side that you're going to be pulling that thread. So you don't want it on this part of your bobbin, you want it back here. That way as it pulls off, it's not going to get caught, because your applique thread's so lightweight that it will get caught in those little slashes really easy. And you just thread your needle, your machine, just like you normally would. I don't do any adjusting at all with my applique threads. On occasion I have to tighten the bobbin if it seems to be really loose, and then I may tighten the bobbin, but I never touch the top tension when I do applique. Alright, so I have that threaded. Alright, so the other thing I want to do is I'm going to double check, and I have a little bit of a repositionable glue buildup on there, so I don't want that on my pressure foot when I start to do my applique. So we're going to get some Clorox wipes. We're going to get all of that cleaned off. The other thing you should do before you start applique is make sure your machine is oiled, your bobbin thread is, everything's clean before you start. Alright, so we have that. And I can see that I do need to clean just a little bit out of this. So we're going to take this. I have a lot of build up there. because your applique, it's very likely that it'll bring any kind of length that you have and catch it in those stitches. I should have a brush. There it is. And make sure your machine is oiled before you start. And I know my machine is oiled because I did that last night. So I think we're ready to start here. And I'm going to move all of this stuff out of the way. Okay, I use a number 37 foot on my Bernina. And it's just it's an open toe, and it's just a little bit of there's not much space in there because the zigzag is so tiny that you're going to stay within that gap, all right? If you have a single hole plate for your machine, go ahead and put your single hole plate on, because that gap is that your zigzag is going to be so tiny that it stays in there, and then you don't have the issue of the thread getting pulled down into the bead dogs. So, and start with a sharp needle. And that is one thing, I'm pretty sure my needle is probably not all that sharp because I've been using it a while. So we're going to put a brand new needle in. And now we're ready to start our applique stitch. So let's rethread my needle. And we're going to give this a try. I have never done this standing up. Actually, I have a chair, so let's pull this chair over. I can sew standing up, but I don't know that I can applique standing up. All right. So I think we have everything we need. You want your little curved scissors. Okay. You're going to have those. And I'm going to move my machine forward. Oh, actually, I probably don't want to do that because Judelle adjusted it. Can you guys still see my machine?
Yeah, you're so good.
Huh?
You're so good.
I'm good? Yeah. All right. So we're going to start, we're going to bring our thread to the top. So get the thread brought to the top. And I'm going to have to move this just a little bit. Bear with me, I've never done applique with my setup here, so I think we're good. All right. And so my stitch width, I'm just going to use my zigzag. I'm not going to put it on zigzag because I want to keep adjusting it. And all I do is just punch, then go back and forth on there. Depending on your machine that you have, I can do that with the Bernina, but you can't necessarily do that with all machines, so you may have to put it on your zigzag. I use a little zigzag stitch for this. So I'm actually going to move my zigzag up to about a 0.8 and on your machine. I want it to be really a small zigzag. On my stitch length, I'm going to move that down to about 1.3. So when I do my stems, that's going to be a really nice stitch. When I get to my circles, I'm going to have to go down on my stitch length. So I'm going to do some stems, and then I'll come in and do some of the some little circles. All right. So we're going to start, and I'm going to have to take my boot off here because I'll never be able to control the needle. There we go. I sew with my left foot. All right. So I'm going to start right here on this little tiny stem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my leaf back, my flower leaf back just a little bit on that petal. And I'm going to bring my needle up to the up position. So I want my thread up, and then I'm going to wrap my thread around my finger 3 or 4 times so it's very tight. And then I'm going to do 3 or 4 stitches right in the same spot. Okay, and now I'm going to just start my zigzag up. And actually the stitch is actually pretty nice. And you have to be able to get a hold of that to control the fabric. So just hold on to your fabric, lift it up a little bit, and go slow. And what I'm doing is I'm jumping on and off, on and off. Okay, so once I get up to the top, if I just try to sew through that really teeny point, it's just going to spread the fabric. So what I want to do is jump across it. So once I get right close to the top, I'm going to take my zigzag, and you have to check your machines. On this machine, I can actually go up to about a 1.4, and it'll jump all the way across the tip of that. So I'm going to adjust my zigzag. And now when I sew, it's going to jump. After I know that it's going to jump across, then I come in and I need to downsize my stitch length, because what I want to do is a little tiny, not quite a satin stitch, but very close stitches right at the tip. So I'm going to go down to about a 0.9, and then I'm going to just sew really slow and let my needle jump back and forth over the tip of that. Okay? And now I'm going to swing it around. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to bring my needle to the up position, and then I'm going to sew back down and let it jump over the top again. Do that about 3 or 4 times, and then readjust. So I'm back up to 1.3, and I'm back down to my 0.9. And now I have my small zigzag again. Okay, so I'm going to cut the thread that's hanging here. And I started that underneath the leaf on that petal, so that's going to actually be buried in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this, fold my petal back again, and I'm going to sew back underneath there, and then 2 or 3 stitches. And then I'm going to bring my needle up, and I'm going to come over to here. I'm not going to cut my threads. I'm just going to pull this back. We're going to fold back the petal again and start right there. So I'm getting right up close to the tip there. Okay, so I'm going to adjust my stitch length back up to where it jumps over, and then I'm going to go down in length. And then we're going to swing it around. I'm going to tell you right now that this would catch the judge's eye. This little tab, it's a little Bernina They're the little classroom machines. This is actually one of the collector ones, the white pearl. But almost all the little Bernina machines that are classroom machines, the applique stitches for machine applique is fantastic. And you can adjust it and do everything you want. They're an inexpensive machine, and if you're looking to do machine applique and you want a good machine for it, you can't get better than these little classroom machines. And I think they're the 135s, or no, actually I think it might be a 330. I'll have to look to see what the number of the machine is in the classroom over at the retreat. Now, but they're great machines for applique. Okay, so I've come back down now. I'm going to readjust. So when you're doing a lot of these really pointy stems like this, you have to do a lot of readjusting on it to get over those tips. But it looks great. And the other thing you can do is, after you sew over the top, if you still see that it might be a little bit fuzzy there, then just take some, I can't even think what the name of the stuff is. It's kind of like a glue, a fray check, and just put a little bit of a drop of fray check on the ends of those, and that'll stop that from fraying if you have that issue. I'm not going to have any fraying on these. This is just coming out perfect. And when I get close to that petal, then I'm just going to fold that up, the edge. So when I put all of my glue on the back of my flowers, I set it inside, so you have the part that you folded over on the edge. I set it inside, the glue inside, so that my aren't glued down to the fabric, and that allows me to be able to get underneath those pieces and fold those back if I want to bury a stitch. Okay, now we're just going to pick that up, and then we're going to go over and move to our next stem. All right. After I do this stem, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to change my thread out and show you how I do circles. All right, so let's go ahead and get this stem finished. All right. So I need to adjust my zigzag up and then down for my, at the end, let that jump over the tip of that. Okay, and then we're going to roll it back around. Okay, now we're going to go downsize our zigzag, up the stitch length again. And the idea here is that you're actually jumping on and off the edge of that with your zigzag. That's the purpose of the zigzag stitch. All right, so we're going to stop. And then I'm going to clip my threads, all of my loose threads, underneath my flower petals. And on the back, I don't clip it really close. I just usually leave about a 1-inch tail on the back. I don't clip them all the way out. And if you're worried about that fraying, you can actually use your fray check as well and just hit the ends there where you clip those off on the top. All right. So we're going to do the little tiny circles. So I'm going to change my thread. Yeah.
Someone wants to see a close-up of the apple.
I was thinking about that. So what we'll have to do is we're going to have to do an adjustment on the camera.
Well, can you bring it up to this camera?
Huh? No, on this one. Right there. Or what do you mean? They want to just see it?
Well, she has to comment, I want to see the applique. Can we see a close-up of the applique?
They can't see it.
Why not?
Because it's perfect. I can't even see it. It is, you can try. They won't be able to see it.
Well, let's get a, oh, look at, here, does that show up? Yeah.
On that side, yeah, I guess you can see it on that side, yeah.
There you go. Right there.
See that little zigzaggy thing with the tip? That's on the back side. And then on the front side, you're not going to be able to see it.
I'm going to see a little bit.
It's invisible thread. But you can see the whole, is that a good deal? Yeah. I think that's centered. And then also, someone said, my machine doesn't have the hole in the bottom like hers does.
Then just thread it the way it's threaded normally.
Got it.
So.
Anyway.
Okay.
All
right. So we're going to do the little circles. So to do a circle, what you have to do is you start quilt. You can't bury your stitch. So you're going to bring the thread up, do 2 or 3 stitches in the same hole, and then you're going to overlap when you finish the circle. The other thing we have to do with the circle is, because it's such a tiny circle, if I leave my length, the stitch length, the way I have it, then it'll leave us, it's kind of just a straight line, a straight line, a straight line, a straight line, and it looks really tacky. So we want to go down to about a 0.9 to go around these little circles, and that may be a little bit big. So after I try my first one, then I'll decide how little I actually want to get with that stitch length. But you don't want, the smaller that stitch, the slower the foot travels, and the easier it is to go around the curve, the circle, because they are tiny. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to start with about a 0.9 on right now, and we're going to see. And we're going to do our first stitch and 2 or 3 stitches in the same hole, and then we're going to start. And you do go slow. That's why so many people hate doing circles. But they look so cool. I'm going to go a little bit smaller on this so I don't have to turn quite so much. I want to be able to try to roll it without having to stop. And if you have a speed adjustment on the machine, this one does not have a speed adjustment, but if you do have one, your lowest speed when you're doing your circles. You don't have to have it on your low speed for your bigger pieces, but you will on these little tiny circles. But see how I have that? That's what you want. And then I'm going to sew right over where I started. I'm going to do probably about 1/4 inch in a, okay, and then I'm just going to pick up the needle and we're going to start again. Janie, what time is it?
4:03.
4:03? Do you have to go, or are you okay for another 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So she has babies at home. And I'm going to show you what these look like here in just a second. Okay, so I have my overlap, and then I'm going to bring my needle up, and we're going to go to the next one. We're going to do our if you get going too fast, you won't be jumping over the edges, which I just did, so. You want to keep it going pretty slow so that your zigzag jumps on and off the fabric. Okay, so I have my 3 circles done. So, can you see them right here?
Yes.
So this is the one where I was going too fast right here, and so it's not jumping on and off. So I have about 1/2 inch there that really looks bad. But the rest of them actually look really, really good. But you can see how close those threads are, and that's because of the circle is so small. And then when you look at the stem, those are a lot more spacious. Those are about a 1.3 stitch, and it just buries right into the edge and you can't see it. All right? So machine applique takes a little bit of practice, but the biggest practice is understanding what the look is that you want. And once you know how you want it to look, then you just keep your machine set at that stitch and memorize those positions. So if you're doing these stems and you have a machine that has a memory stitch on it, you would want to put both of those stitches and stitch lengths into that memory, so that when you come up on the points there, you would just flip to the other memory and then do that and then flip back. And so, all right, I want to show you how I do this flower right here. So I'm just going to use this turquoise thread on the whole thing. But what I do is I actually will come in here, come up around here, come down, and then I switch over to a straight stitch. And I have a friend over in Washington that taught me this about, I'd say 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And this is the best trick ever, but I do a straight stitch right along that edge, and then I come back and I flip this around and I do my zigzag stitch right over that. And so basically that straight stitch right there is buried with my applique, and so I don't have a whole bunch of stop and starts when I do my flowers. Sometimes I'll actually pull this little piece off here, and then I can sew all the way in and then come back and glue it on. Do you see what I'm saying? So I can start here, and then when I come down I don't have anything, and then I can just put the flower back on and put that center piece on back in place. So let me go ahead and do that flower for you. And if Janie has to leave, that's fine. We can say goodbye without her. All right, so we're going to start sewing. I want to go back up to my 1.3, and then I have my width is the same as what I had. And now we're going to start sewing. Now, the tip on these flowers is not that sharp, and so you shouldn't have to adjust it like you do on the long stems. So I'm just going to go right up to the end, and then I'll stop and then turn it, and then I'll just go back over that spot, going the other direction. And I don't have to do any adjusting on it. Okay, so now at this point, I butt it up against that, and what I'm going to do is, excuse me, take and go down to a straight stitch, and I'm going to sew right along the edge of that leaf, or I should say petal, flower petal. And when I get down to the bottom, then I'm going to flip it around, and then I'm going to go back up with my zigzag, and I'm going to adjust the zigzag a little bit bigger on this one and just go to a 1, because it's burying in there and you can't even see it. That way I can go just a little bit faster with it. And then we're going to sew right up off the edge, the point there, roll it around, get my needle up, and then start back down. Okay, now I'm going to go down to my straight stitch. Get to the center, flip it around. Go back up to 1 on my zigzag. straight stitch. Down to my straight stitch again. Zigzag. Straight stitch. I'm on my last one. Okay, so this is where I'm going to tie off, so I'm just going to hold it in one spot right along that edge.
Someone said they would like to see the hole in the bobbin just so they understood what it was. So
Oh.
maybe pull it out and hold it up to them.
All right, so let me show you what that flower looks like. You can't see any of those straight stitches along there.
Hold it down a little bit. There you go.
There we go. It looks really, really nice. Even though I didn't match the thread perfectly, it blends in there really well. Okay, so I'm going to show you this Bernina bobbin. It's just this is just your older style bobbin from Bernina, and that's all it is. It's just a little arm, and there's a little hole there, and tension when you're doing a buttonhole. And it works fabulous for applique. All right. Okay. So that's it for the applique. If you guys have some other questions about applique, go ahead and message us on that platform that Judelle set up. And I can either do another demonstration or talk about it, but applique is a slow process. You know, I can usually set at the machine about 3 to 4 hours, and then I have to leave it. And I will tell you that, like for me, this is probably going to take me, I think I had about 4 days of applique, just non-stop applique, when I was putting this one together. It's on the wall. So there's probably about 30 to 40 hours of applique in there. And so you have to do it for a while, and then you just stop and you come back. But it's really easy, nice, because the blocks are flat and you don't end up having to bunch up all that fabric underneath your machine. And so they come out laying really, really nice for you when you're done. I got to figure out what I did with, oh, there it is, my little flower. So we are going to sign off for you guys for today. And we'll post a video of me completing all of the cutting for the queen size quilt. I don't know exactly when. I would like to try to get it done in the next 3 or 4 days if possible, but I have to make sure that I can have Judelle here when I do that. All right. So anyway, I want to say goodbye to everybody. We'll see you at the next class, which is, I think, after Christmas sometime. All right. Have a Merry